What about 2-0 teams that might be not quite as good as their record indicates? The Raiders, Broncos, Bucks, Panthers, 49ers, Rams, and Cardinals are on the list. I feel like there are two pretty obvious candidates outside of the NFC West. Or I guess three obvious candidates, potentially.
Okay. The Panthers are the first one.
Of course.
I'm all for the redemption that Sam Darnold got versus the Jets, how he's looked so far. CMC is back. Robbie Anderson looks great. Joe Brady really does look like an offensive genius, especially since the fallout at LSU since he left. Okay. And then Matt Rule's a good defensive mind, good defensive coach, a lot of good young players there. I mean, I'm all for them being that surprise team in the NFC South. I just don't think they're going to end up being a playoff team.
No, I think I think they'll be in the hunt though.
Right. And so just for the stats, right? So from 1990 to 2019, back when we only had 12 teams that went 2-0 had a 62% chance during that period of time of going to the playoffs. Teams that went 0-2 had 12% chance. Now last year, okay, 7 teams each side, 14 total teams. There was not a team that went 0-2 that made it to the playoffs.
Correct.
If that gives you any indication of the hole they're in. But just to kind of further the conversation statistically. But it's got to be the Panthers. And then I think the other team, though, is the Cardinals because, they really shouldn't have won that game. And I love what they're doing so far. Kyler Murray might be in the MVP conversation, but I think the 49ers are better. I think the Seahawks are better, even with that disappointing, loss and what they gave up to the Titans. And I think the Rams are better. Yeah. So I still think right now they're the worst team in that division. And so, yeah, it's great for a 2-0 start, but let's be real. You probably should be 1-1. That's the one I'm really focusing on to see how they carry on.
Okay, so on the Panthers really quickly, I'm not like homeristic here for the Panthers at all. I think it's cool that they're 2-0. I do think they'll probably fall back a little bit. I also think that I was expecting a year 3 leap maybe, especially for that defense, and maybe it's happening a little earlier.
That's Matt Rule's track record, right? Year 3 is always his best year.
Yeah, he goes from bad year to medium year to breakout season, and so
taking off. Yeah.
So I think they'll probably finish closer to 500 when it's all said and done. But man, their schedule. So they're at Houston this week on Thursday Night Football. So you get the mini bye before you go to the Cowboys in week 4, and then you have the Eagles at home, Vikings at home, at the Giants, at the Falcons. Like that is how many of those 6 games do they can easily go 4-2 and be 6-2 before you know it.
Yeah.
Now, they haven't played the Buccaneers at all, in that stretch, but they play the Buccaneers 2 of the final 3 weeks of the season, which is actually huge because there's a chance that Tom Brady and the Bucs might have sewn up the number 1 overall seed and they sit guys.
Yeah. That's a reality. That's the potential chance of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can make a case for them because they're scheduled, but the back half of that schedule gets a little bit more difficult.
For sure.
And that's where I think they start.
Pats, Bills,
that's where it starts evening out.
Yeah. So they have to stack wins now and hope they can pull off some upsets later to make the playoffs.
Let me make a case though, because I know you said surprising, because I'm sure you're going to talk about Denver and Las Vegas. Okay. I think Denver's legit. I think Denver's legit.
I do too.
I think they've got the defense. I like the way Teddy's spreading the football around. They have playmakers. Even though I feel like their offensive line at times struggles to protect, they can still run the football. Like, that team's hanging around now. Like, I think everyone's really high, and I know you were high on the Chargers. I'm not so much, man. Like, I think they're good, and if 3 teams went to the playoffs from one division, it's either the NFC West, AFC West, and they're probably part of that. But I think the Denver, especially when you look at their schedule, they set up to be a team that can be a shockingly 10-win team, maybe even better than that, at least at the pace they're on. So I'll defend them. The Raiders, it's hard to explain. It's really more about Derek Carr. He's playing like an MVP right now. That's the only thing you could say about it. Because their defense, Gus Bradley's improved their defense. I get that. I'm just not buying into their inability to run the football and Carr being able to do this for 15 more games. Like, I'm sorry. It's going to be hard for him to do that. So if they don't improve drastically running the football and a little bit on defense, I don't know. I think it's hard to sustain.
Okay. I'm sort of in the same boat. The Broncos defense is just good, barring, Von Miller's back. Patrick Surtain looks like he's potentially a steal where they got him, especially after JC Horn. And they just have guys that can fly all over the place. And offensively, we overlooked the fact that Teddy Bridgewater is extremely familiar with Pat Shurmur's system. And that makes life a lot easier for him to be this I mean, he's just better than Drew Lock, and they made the right decision. Like, it's very clear 2 weeks in.
Yeah, look, I think you and I were talking about this before. His ceiling might not be as high as Drew Lock, but his floor is sure of a hell of a lot higher than Drew Lock's. And that's what it gives them. It gives them this like consistent level of play where he's not turning over the football. He's putting the football at the right spot. And that's all they needed last year, maybe even the year before. I mean, think about how many close games they lost that one pass here, one lack of a turnover here might have changed the outcome of the game. They don't have to worry about it anymore with Teddy. So, and by the way, I know everyone's kind of seen that clip of Von Miller telling him, hey, we haven't felt this way since 18 was here. But that's big. Like when you've got a leader on defense who comes up and says that to a guy, and he's honestly telling him, like, we have confidence and faith in you. That's way bigger than I think you can ever kind of measure and put in some sort of metric.
For sure. Speaking of metrics, just want to let you know. Would you like to know what the dork stats say about the top 5 teams in the NFL?
Sure. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
This Football Outsiders DVOA. I know you're a big.
Oh yeah, here it is. Here it is. Let's hear it.
Shoot the DVOA in my roid-filled arm. Yeah, shoot it. Number 1, the Carolina Panthers. They have the number 1 ranked defense, 15th ranked offense. Number 2, and the only team with an offensive and defensive ranking in the top 5, the Los Angeles Rams. Number 3, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And they haven't adjusted for opponent yet. That happens about week 4 or 5, I think. Number 4.
Yeah.
As you well know. Number 4,
of course.
The only other team with an offensive defense in the top 10, the Denver Broncos, are the number 4 offense and the number 10 defense, and the 5th team in football, the Arizona Cardinals. Las Vegas, by the way, 19th.